The challenge problem on homework 1 asks you to write a Python program that prints itself. Now, the way to get set up in order to solve this problem is to put your Python program in a file. Here I have x.py, and here's the command line where I can run x.py. Well, maybe this is a trivial solution. I have an empty file, and this printed nothing. So maybe I solved the problem already. That's a silly solution. Let's come up with something a little more advanced. So if I just put the number 1 in here, and I run this, it doesn't print the number 1. So that doesn't solve the problem. If I write print 1, then it does in fact print the number 1, but it doesn't print the word print. Uh-oh. Now, to set ourselves up further, what I'm going to do is create a command line that actually shows you the contents of the file, followed by what you get when you execute the file. So here we can compare. What's in the file? Print 1. What happens when we execute it? Well, it prints out 1. And the thing we're missing is the print. And of course we could go in here and say, well, what I'd like you to do is print 1, at which point we have print 1 in the output, but now we have print 1 in the input. And so they still don't match. So the goal of this problem was to find a way to write a program that prints itself. Now, in order to print yourself, you have to refer to yourself somehow. And referring to yourself means writing an assignment statement. So I'm going to give you a general structure. I suggest at any time you could just quit watching this video and try to solve the rest on your own. But the general structure you can start with is to say s is some string, which I will evaluate. Now, eval is a built-in function that just evaluates this string as if it were an expression in Python. An empty expression doesn't evaluate at all. If I put something like, what's the absolute value of 2 in here, it will evaluate the absolute value of 2 and then throw that result away. It will not print it out automatically. If, however, I write print 2 here, it will evaluate print 2 and therefore print the number 2. Okay, so now in my second iteration, I have a way of printing something out. I assign print and then whatever I want to print in this string, and then I evaluate that string as an expression, at which point it prints. Now, it's still the case that I have much more in the input than I do in the output. This is not a program that prints itself. See if you can discover the trick of how to print itself. I'll show you in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what you do is instead of printing 2, you print s. Interesting. What happened there? Okay, so we bound the string print s to the name s, at which point we evaluated print s. By the time we evaluated it, print was already bound to the string print s, which was printed. And so what it got printed out was print s, and that's why we see print s on the screen. This is an important moment because we have print s in the input and print s in the output. Now's a good time to stop watching this video and try to solve it yourself. I'll go on. So I can put other things inside this print expression. I don't just have to print s, but I could print 1 as well. Okay, so here it said print 1, comma s as the string, and then I see the 1 there and the 1 there, because all of this is s, and I told it to print 1. So we're actually getting more copies of 1 here in the output than we did in the input. And we can use that to fill in everything else around the print s. So print can take multiple arguments, or it can take a string that I build up from pieces. So I could put anything I want here, add that to s, and anything will appear twice. Anything shows up at the beginning, and it also appears within s right there. Now's a good time to stop and solve it on your own. But I'll go on. Okay, so instead of writing anything, I could write s equals. What does that do? Well, now when I run this, it says s equals whatever. That's the input. That's the program that I wrote. and I told it to print s equals, and then the contents of s. Whoa, so a lot of this is repeated. The only thing that's not repeated are some quotation marks and the eval at the end. Well, getting the eval at the end is pretty easy. I just say, please write eval s at the end. At which point, the whole thing becomes longer, but eval s shows up twice, just like it does in the input. S equals shows up twice, just like it does in the input. The only thing we're missing is quotation marks around here. There are many ways to get those to appear, but one is to call the repr function on s. What does the repr function do? Well, if s is high, then if I said high, it would look like that. And if I printed out s, it would look like that. Well, the repr of s is a string that evaluates to s, which meant if I evaluated the repr of s, I would get back the string that I had in the first place. But the most important property is that it makes quotation marks appear. So if I print the repr of s, what I see is the quotation marks, as opposed to just the word high. Okay, so where was I before? I'll go back to where I was before. I had everything except for the quotation marks in there, but if I add a call to repr, then in fact I solve the problem.